Good morning. It is morning. I got up at a normal time today. Um, just gonna do this quick little tag. I saw Jim do it over at Jim's Books Reading and Stuff. Original was created by Mason in the Dark, so links will be in the description for those. And it's a little one. It's just 6 questions, so hopefully this will be a shorter than usual video. Won't be an hour long. Um, and this is the Wishful Thinking book tag. Legacy. Is there an author you wish was still alive today to witness the impact of their work? Um, those who know me might want to guess that I would say David Foster Wallace. I think that if David Foster Wallace hadn't committed suicide in 2008, he definitely would have by now. Because everything that he hated about society and was terrified of and saw coming has come true, and I just can't imagine him surviving that amount of existential horror. Um, there are certainly a lot of people who were great writers that didn't achieve any success during their lifetime, who I would wish this upon, someone like Melville or Kafka. But the one that I'm going to go with is John Kennedy Toole, who wrote Confederacy of Dunces. He never had anything published in his lifetime, like Kafka and others. But the reason I'm choosing Toole is because it's generally accepted that his inability to get Dunces published was a large contributing factor in his suicide. Surely it's not, the only reason, but it seems like it was a very traumatic, hard thing for him that he felt he was making good work and nobody seemed to believe in him until he gave up on himself. And, yeah, I wish that he could have been there to win his Pulitzer Prize. Number 2, The Memory Wipe. Which book or series do you wish you could forget, either so you could experience it again for the first time, or forget it completely because it was so bad, I would assume. I think I might go with The Instructions by Adam Levin, because it is a really long book, but it's so compulsively readable. When I read it in a week, even though it's over 1,000 pages long. I just remember how feverishly fun that experience was, and it also happened at a really hard time in my life, one of the worst, chunks of time in my life. It was a real sort of lifesaver that was being thrown to me when I was sort of drowning. Yeah, I think that being able to recapture that feeling would be pretty enjoyable. Number 3, Destiny. Which character do you wish had a different fate? This time I'm going to go with Infinite Jest, and I'm going to go with Hal Ikendenza, who is one of the... there's a lot of characters, but there are two that are kind of generally considered to be the two main characters of Infinite Jest, and he's one of them. He's a student at the tennis academy. His fate isn't really much of a spoiler because the first chapter of Infinite Jest chronologically is the final thing that happens in the book, so we learn his fate at the outset of the book before we learn anything else about him. And he has had something happen to him which has basically reduced him to... He has all of the cognitive functions, the ability to think, etc., but whenever he attempts to talk or communicate with anybody, he uncontrollably begins convulsing and making horrible noises and spasming and just being alarming to everybody around him, and he can't communicate at all. He's effectively trapped inside of his body, which is a pretty horrifying fate to have. This is a fate that does befall people in the real world to some degree, the idea of being trapped in the body. There's the famous memoir and film adaptation of The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. I've never read the book, but the film by Julian Schnabel. I haven't seen it in a really long time, but I remember being very affected by it when it came out. Very terrifying idea that could just happen to you, you know, and you lose all ability to move or speak, but your thoughts are all the same, you know. The body is already a prison in the first place, at least to me, so that just sounds infinitely worse. Namesake. If a character was going to be named after you, what kind of person would you wish them to be, and what sort of story would you want them to be in? Well, thankfully there is not a character named after me. There is a character like me in a book that I wrote, but that character does not have a name. I would say that the only thing I would want for a character based on me, or a character version of myself, is for them to find more hope and solace in their journey than I have. Which is not to say that I am hopeless or that I couldn't find more in my own future, but I would just want better things for them than I've had for myself. That's all. Collectibles is number 5. What fictional object do you wish that you could own? I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to pick something that is not from a book. It's also silly, and not practical. Like, of course I would want... Jim picked the TARDIS. You know, you can go to any time or place in history or future of the universe. Like, that's, yeah, obviously that. But I'm going to be a little more cheeky. I'm going to pick something silly. I'm going to pick the Pick of Destiny from the Tenacious D film. Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. So if you haven't seen the movie, the Pick of Destiny is a guitar pick that is carved from Satan's tooth, and it grants the wielder of it the ability to rock at unprecedented levels and achieve huge amounts of fame and success for your rock. I think I would enjoy that. At least a little bit. Certainly there's a monkey's paw element to that, and fame is not necessarily like purely enjoyable or easy, but I do think that being successful enough to be rich just off of making stuff sounds pretty good, you know. A lot better than what I've got going on. Plus I would have a guitar pick made from Satan's tooth, which is just like the coolest thing. Number 6, the reset button. Which book or series do you wish was written by a different author? This one I thought about for quite a while. There aren't really any things that I could think of that I've read where I'm like, if this person wrote that, it would be better, you know? But there are things where I'm like, it would be interesting, or I would be very intrigued to see the results of it. And the thing I landed on that that I'm going to go with is if Mark Z Danielewski, the author of House of Leaves, amongst other things, if he had written The Big Sleep, or another, you know, classic of early 20th century noir, Chandler, whoever, just that style, the hard-boiled detective mystery, but because Danielewski is so mystery is such a huge sort of thing at play in his works and discovery, but he's so, you know, also entrenched in the experimentation of the text to enhance the experience of that. I'd be very interested in seeing his interpretation of a detective story, of a mystery of that kind. I imagine it would be surreal and fascinating, and he would do something cool with it. Because his other books, he's, you know, done things, obviously, other than House of Leaves, and they've all had some level of textual experimentation. But, like, for instance, like his novella The 50-Year Sword, that book is a book that's like all dialogue, but the dialogue is attributed by color. So every character, their text is in a different color, and that's how you know who is speaking. And that's pretty much the only sort of textual experimentation in the book. It doesn't use like formatting and labyrinthian stuff like that, like House of Leaves does. So he could take it in a lot of interesting directions that I wouldn't even necessarily conceive of, and I would just be really interested in seeing how he did it, and I think it would be a fun and interesting read. Not necessarily just, you know, a Philip Marlowe story, but just that genre in general is more what I'm thinking. Alright, this one's quick, short, little video. Yeah, I've got a couple ideas brewing in my head for future videos, so we will see them on the horizon. Thanks for watching.